everybody, welcome back to another episode of Talking Cardboard, a channel where we do reviews, playthroughs, and top 10 lists for any game made out of cardboard. As always, if you enjoy the content you see here on the channel, consider subscribing, we really do appreciate it. In this video, I will be doing a rapid-fire review of my initial impressions of Andromeda's Edge. Let's get started. Okay, and like I said, in this rapid-fire initial impressions review of Andromeda's Edge, I will be going through everything I liked about the game and everything I did not like about the game in my first playthrough of it. And first and foremost, Andromeda's Edge is a massive, massive game. I got the complete all-in deluxeified version of the game. Very excited about this. This is a follow-up to the huge Dwellings of Eldervale success from a few years back. So this is pretty much like the spiritual successor or the 2.0 to Dwellings of Eldervale with enough changes to make the game somewhat completely different. So like I said, let's just go through my likes and dislikes rapid fire style so you can see if Andromeda's Edge is right for you. The first thing I really enjoy in Andromeda's Edge is the same thing that I really enjoyed about Dwellings of Eldervale, and that is the worker placement and the pulling off of the workers and the amount of player interaction in this game. There's a lot of player interaction both with other players around the table and with the other AI ships that are moving around that are really making it a difficult decision on which worker placement spots you want to send your ships to, depending on who you may want to or not want to get in combat with. You are sending your ships to different locations to do these different actions, but what's also really fun about Andromeda's Edge, which was also fun in Dwellings of Eldervale, is that you can pull your ships back off the board at any time, any round, to then trigger some other actions on your main player board. Another thing that I really enjoy about Andromeda's Edge that I like a little bit better than Dwellings of Eldervale is that you have starting asymmetric ship upgrades for each and every one of your ships that you can upgrade into. In Dwellings of Eldervale, for comparison's sake, you had meeples that had different abilities that varied between the different meeples, but from player to player, each of the players felt very similar. There wasn't a lot of asymmetry in Andromeda's Edge. There is a ton of asymmetric ship upgrades that you get at the start of the game, and then you are trying to work toward actually applying those ship upgrades to your different ships. So I really like that about Andromeda's Edge. My next like is another improvement upon its predecessor, and that is the combat system in this game. In the original Dwellings of Eldervale, you rolled dice and your opponents rolled dice, and whoever rolled the highest value die won the combat, and that was pretty much it. In Andromeda's Edge, it is essentially the same way that you play combat by rolling out dice and whoever rolls the higher die wins, but they integrated a targeting system in this game where the amount of ships you play into battle or into combat is the amount of targeting you have, which essentially says, let's say I were to bring 3 ships into combat, you brought 2 ships into combat, I have 3 targeting, you have 2 targeting, and that simply means that I can re-roll any die rolls that are less than 3. You can only re-roll any die results that are less than 2. So essentially you can re-roll any 1s that you roll. I can re-roll any 1s or 2s that I roll. So it just gives you that more of a chance at winning the combat depending on how much targeting you have that you're bringing into the combat. So I definitely thought that was a nice touch and a nice difference in Andromeda's Edge. And the last couple pros I really liked with Andromeda's Edge is that, for example, when you are purchasing technology tiles, depending on what color technology you are adding to your tableau, also tells you what color track you get to move up on for different special abilities or victory points. And I really like that sense of racing up to the top of the tracks to try to get higher up on different victory point tracks or higher up on different special ability tracks. And it just adds another little bit of tension in the game and a little bit more asymmetry in the game depending on what tracks you decide you are trying to run up and what tracks your opponents are going after. So I really like that nice little touch to Andromeda's Edge, and I also really enjoy the AI ships that are in this game that are going around and just causing problems for everyone. Depending on if you want to get in combat with an AI ship or not, that'll really depend on where you can place your workers on the board. So it really kind of corners you into different areas of the map. You may have to go to some worker placement placement spots that you didn't necessarily have to go to, or you might have to upgrade your ships or your combat a little bit better before you go after certain positions, depending on where the AI ships are. And then also your opponents can join in on the battle when you are battling the AI ships too. So just again, it adds to that player interaction. It really adds that tension to where you can place your workers on the board. So I really, really like that, and that's a huge pro for me in Andromeda's Edge. And now getting into what I didn't like about Andromeda's Edge, and that's only a couple minor things. The first thing I wanted to touch on here that I did not really enjoy too much is that yes, you are gaining technology tiles to your tableau that you can then send your ships back to in Trigger. One thing I didn't like with that though is that in Andromeda's Edge, when you send a ship back to a row of technology tiles, you can also spend energy next to that ship to trigger multiple technology tiles. And I just found that it was fairly simple, a little bit too simple for my taste, to gain energy and then utilize that energy to trigger the technology tiles. I just felt like each time you were recalling your workers back to your main board, it was way too simple to trigger almost all of the tiles every single round, except for in the later rounds when you had so many technology tiles you couldn't possibly trigger them all. But it's just, for my taste, it didn't feel tight enough, and it felt like you could just trigger too many of those tiles every time you recalled your ships back to your board. I wish that mechanism was a little bit tighter and provided for a little bit more tense of decision making on what tiles you can and cannot trigger. And the last minor dislike I had with this game is that every time you send your ship to a worker placement location, there is a stack of moon tiles at that location, and you automatically get to collect one of the moons from the top of that stack and put it on your player board. You can then, which honestly is a mechanism I really like, you can then put the moons in between technology tiles to then be triggered later every time you basically sandwich that moon. When you place a ship on a technology tile in front of it and behind the moon, you can also trigger the resource ability on that moon, which I really liked. But I didn't like the fact that every time you went to a worker placement spot, it was just so easy to collect that moon. You just automatically got it. You also have the option to just spend the moon immediately for immediate resources, and I felt like you didn't really have to work for it. You didn't have to work toward trying to collect that moon or the moon tiles. They were just too easy to collect, too easy to turn into and or throw onto your technology tiles to then be later triggered every single time you were sending your workers back to your player board. And I just wish there was a little bit more decision space with, oh man, can I afford to go there to grab that moon, or should I save up and go there later to then be able to purchase that moon or collect that moon from that spot? I wish there was a little bit more of that balance, or a little bit more of that interaction with the moon tiles in this game, and not just so simple to collect each and every time. So like I said, short and sweet, rapid fire video here today of my likes and dislikes from the first play of Andromeda's Edge that I have under my belt. It's just an initial impressions. My thoughts could change, they could get better, could get worse over time. The official review is yet to come here on the channel, but I did just get it played recently and wanted to get my initial impressions out for this game, because I do really feel like this game is quite an amazing game, and honestly, in my opinion, quite an improvement over Dwellings of Eldervale. So I am going to be hanging on to this game in my collection for quite a while. I want to get multiple more plays under my belt before our official review here on the channel, and let you know if it's going to be a keeper after a handful of plays, or if it's going to be a game that I'm getting rid of after a handful of plays. I hope you enjoyed. Again, if you enjoy the content here on the channel, consider subscribing. It really helps us out a lot. And leave comments below on your thoughts on Andromeda's Edge or on Dwellings of Eldervale. Either one is fine with me. Until next time, you all have a great day and have fun gaming.